welcome to this edition of Time Out for Sports on Fayette County TV. My name is Jess Hudson. Thanks for joining us. And many years ago, I had an opportunity to do this show on another TV channel, and we were very blessed to sit down and talk with a great number of athletes. Some were first-team All-State, some were state champions, some were national champions. We talked with first-team college All-Americans and even All-Pro running backs. But never before did we have an opportunity to talk with an Olympian, but we have that opportunity today, and I'm real proud to introduce Genevieve Lacause. Jen is from Queensland, Australia. She's been a four-year superior athlete at the University of Florida, and she is headed to London to participate in the Olympics in just a few short days. So Jen, welcome. Thanks for joining us on Fayette County TV.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So we met a couple weeks ago, and I was surprised to run into you at the Woodruff race the other day, and we talked a little bit about things before the race. I asked you what time, etc., and I told you you were going to win that race, which means you were going to beat the boys too. Did you think you had a chance at that?
I didn't. I looked at previous times just because I was curious earlier that day, and they were all around about the time I ran, maybe a little bit quicker. So I kind of just went in hoping to be the first female, not really considering winning the whole thing. So it was a big surprise.
Great, and you know a little bit now about the history of the Woodruff race with John Woodruff, the Olympic gold medalist, 1936, Berlin, Hitler, and all that. And it kind of has an Olympic kind of setting at the end of the race when you come into the arena or track. Tell us about what you were thinking about as you entered the last quarter mile in the stadium there.
No, it was really exciting because that's exactly what was running through my head when I was doing that last lap. I was kind of trying to imagine what it's like, because I haven't raced in a few weeks now since I qualified. So I was trying to picture myself being at the Olympics and running that last lap. It was really exciting, and I had a little crowd there, and it was so much fun. I'm so glad I got to do it before I head off over to London. But that's exactly, I definitely had that in my mind, and especially because of the history. I'd heard a little bit about that story the day of the race, so it was kind of really like a nice omen to go into London.
Great. Well, you're the first female to win that race, and that might be something that stands for many, many years to come. So good job.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, so we're going to fast forward. We're going to try to go back to Australia. If we can take our thousands of viewers back there, we're going to get on a plane, go to the West Coast, and that's a big trip just in itself. I had the good fortune, as you know, to attend the Olympics in Sydney back in 2000. My older brother Bill and I went. We had to go to Hawaii. Geez, sorry about that. We stopped at Fiji for a little bit. Then we went to Auckland in New Zealand. And then we made the final leg over to Sydney. Now you live in Queensland, which is just north of Sydney. So tell us about Brisbane and Daisy Hill and what it was like to grow up as a youngster in Australia.
Well, Brisbane's the capital city of Queensland, so to me I always thought it was a major city. But now when I compare it to any city in America, it's actually really small. But I grew up in a small town called Tamborine Mountain, which is a beautiful place, known for their wineries actually. It's a big tourist attraction. And I kind of started running there just at a primary school that I went to with my brothers. And then we had to move because my older brother, was approaching high school. So then we moved to a bigger school. It was a Catholic private school, and they had cross country. It was compulsory. You had to run it every year. So I started going to running club just because I wanted to run, and just my parents couldn't pick me up before and after school. I needed to be looked after, so I kind of just went as more of a daycare sort of thing. And then I just started running a lot, and I just had so much support at school. And I mean, just like I do now in college, they made a big fuss and always gave me the facilities I needed at the time, the coaching I needed. I ran mainly with boys on the team, and it kind of just was like I was like a big fish in a little pond really in high school, and it just really gave me the love to continue running, and so that's how it kind of led off to being offered a scholarship in Florida. But it was a small city. Queensland's actually it's a very big state. However, the population is quite small, so I was always out there running on my own, and always looked better than I probably was because I would win races by quite a fair bit. But when I'd go to the national level and versus the rest of Australia, I was always on the podium, top three. But I mean, there was some big talent out there, and I was just kind of ranked nationally, but nothing special. I think I really managed to, see where I was capable and what sort of events were my best when I came to Florida. They really were able to make me shine that little bit more, because in high school, I mean, you all look good when you don't have many people to race.
Good, good. So you come from an athletic family.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was a big, strong, rugged rugby player.
Yeah.
Mom was a ballerina.
Yeah.
You have 3 brothers.
Yeah.
One is within 2 years younger.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 are within 2 years older. So
Yeah.
you have 4 kids within 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
and you're right in the middle of that, and they're boys. So how did that lend into you growing up and playing
Mm-hmm.
sports and being active?
Yeah, I mean, my dad always says it was because I had 3 brothers that I managed to be so active growing up. Because I had 2 older brothers, they were always tough and pushed me around, but because I had one younger one, I used to always put him on the back of my bike and ride him around the house. I was always doing something crazy with them, and I think that just made me, be really competitive and enjoy being active at all times. I think if I had a sister, I probably maybe not necessarily would have done more girly things, but I would have just probably fought a lot with her, because I'm very competitive. So if boys beat me, it's okay, but if I beat them, it's a bonus. So having 3 brothers, I think definitely is one of the main contributors to why I love to compete, I love to run, I love to be active, always outside, and just doing boy things.
And your dog, Oscar,
Mm-hmm.
plays a big part in this.
Yeah, he does. So when I went to nationals in 6th grade for the first time, and I said to Dad, "What will you give me if I win?" And he said, "Oh, well, what do you want?" And I said, "Well, I want a pony. If I could have a pony, that would be great." And he's like, "Well, you're not getting a pony if you win." So we agreed on a waterbed at first. If I won, I got a waterbed. I ended up coming second in that race. So the year after, I said, "Dad, if I win, I want a puppy." And he agreed. I don't know if he didn't think I was going to win or if he was happy to have a dog, but I ended up winning, and it did take a while to get it, but he got me a puppy, so I was very lucky, and we still have him to this day. We take him to the fun runs and any of the family functions, and he's there.
Are there many 5K or road races in Queensland or Australia?
Yeah, Australia's pretty big with road races. It's actually track meets that we don't have too much of, but because of our climate and like wonderful conditions, we can do road races all year round. So 5Ks and 10Ks, even 15Ks are pretty popular, and there's really good competition. Probably not as big, we can't get as many competitors, but the quality of athletes is definitely pretty high.
So let's move into how you get recruited and end up in Florida. So your high school team, was it cross country or track team, went to Italy, and your team finished 4th, and you finished 6th overall. Was that track or cross country?
That was cross country. We heard that every 2 years they would do World Cross Country, and I think we heard about it 2 years out. So we found 5 girls, and we just thought, in 2 years' time we can potentially be one of the top teams in the country to make this. So we did. We started training 2 years out, and by the time selection process came around, we ran really well and was selected as the number 1 school team in the nation to go to Italy. And so we went and versed most countries in the world, and came 4th, which was just, it was crazy.
So your team was successful, and you were the biggest part of that success. You finished 6th. So you've caught the eye of a number of recruiters. So take us through the recruiting process after you go back to Queensland, and then how you end up at Florida.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how much of the U.S. College system heard about that World Cross Country, because I know that I don't think there was a U.S. team that year, but I do know that I was really lucky in the sense that there was actually an Australian there before me. A girl on our team was a year older than me, and I'd competed against her 1 or 2 times. Her name's Rebecca Lowe, and I think she helped out in giving my name. I think they just asked, what other Australians are up there on the ranking at the moment, and that's how they got kind of my contact details and stuff. But I was contacted by a few other schools. I know Texas A&M had an Australian there, a boy that used to live and go to the same track meets near where I lived, and he gave them my details. So once one school called, it kind of like opened the floodgate. A few schools started calling and emailing, and before I knew it, I started to understand it a little bit more, what the U.S. college system was all about, because I had no idea. and then my parents like were really intrigued and thought, let's narrow it down and go over for a recruiting visit. And so Texas and Florida ended up paying for the flights between the two, and I came over towards the end of my senior year and just visited the two just for 48 hours, however the rules are. And I loved Florida. I loved Texas, but I went there first and thought it was amazing because it was the first college I've ever seen. But when I went to Florida, it was more the people, the climate, the atmosphere. I loved everything else about it, plus the facilities. So
you wanted to be able to end up doing this all the time, huh?
Yeah, well, it's funny because when I first went there, I actually wasn't that fond of the orange and blue. I was kind of like, oh, it's two weird colors to put together. But I mean, everything I have is orange and blue now. I love it.
Good. Well, Florida, a couple of national championships in basketball, a couple national championships in track, Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
So what kind of track program did Florida have when they recruited you?
I knew that they had a very good, sprinting program. Coach Holloway's our head coach. He's a phenomenal coach of so many Olympians. They on paper had a very impressive statistics. So that obviously was a big thing when I was deciding, but also they had a lot of bragging rights with their basketball and football team. They'd won, those national championships right before I turned up. It was like 3 national championships in 1 year, in 365 days, and I was like, that was pretty impressive, even though I didn't even know to the extent what that meant. But just also, they had a really good distance team, but even since I got over there, it's improved phenomenally. We ended up on my second year there getting 7th in the nation, which was the best Florida's ever finished. So they've definitely made a lot of strides in the past 4 years. But even before I turned up, it was a pretty good team. So
Good.
It was impressive.
Good. So it's a big jump from Queensland to the west coast of the United States. That's about 7,000 miles. Then you have to get on a plane and go 3,000 more miles over to Florida. So that was a big jump for you, and you had a lot of apprehension, as I understand, and even went through some challenges just to make it work as an 18-year-old. So talk us through that, your first couple months at Florida.
Yeah, it was tough because I definitely probably couldn't have even picked a further college to go to from home. But it was very difficult at first. I never really wanted to. I never agreed, with coming over. I kind of just said it's a bit far, it's a big jump, I won't see my family, I'll see them every 6 months. I kind of was really worried, but my parents knew what an opportunity it was. They don't offer anything like that in Australia. There's not even college sports, so my dad knew that if I wanted to continue running, and he could tell I loved it, I would have to come over. But I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice. I was willing to quit running to, not have to leave my family. I just hadn't been away for that long before. But they helped me, they made a big deal about it at first. They're like, look, we'll go over, we'll have a holiday in Hawaii, we'll spend your birthday over there, we'll help you set up your dorm, we'll be there for orientation week, and then we'll leave you when you're settled in. And so I kind of agree. That's how they got me on the plane and got me over there. But the day they left, I remember it was a Thursday night and it was raining. And they had to go catch a flight in Orlando, and they left me. And I think I cried for the next 4 or 5 months, probably till Christmas time. It was horrible. It was really tough. And I would have to say it nearly took a year to enjoy it. It took a year to settle in and stop getting that anxious feeling of being alone and being on your own. Because, you come across things that you've never had to deal with before. I remember having to set up a phone account, and I thought it was the end of the world. I didn't even know how you did that. I didn't know how to have my own bank account. I didn't know how to look after problems on my own. I obviously was given a tremendous amount of support, but at 18 years of age, you think it's the end of the world when something happens and you don't have your parents there to pick up the slack. But after Christmas time, I think it was harder to go back again because I'd come back, enjoyed them for a few weeks, and then was being sent away again. And then my parents got a divorce, so it was really unexpected. I definitely didn't see that coming. So that kind of shook things up again. But running well made everything well. I just started progressing on track. They start really helping. When you start doing so well on track, they look after you more. I feel like, you start getting more attention, and I'm probably one of those people that just love the limelight, because as soon as I started running well, everything fell together. And by the end of June, after Nationals, my freshman year, I loved the place, and I went home. I had summer at home, and I was ready again by the time August rolled around.
That's great. So you had an incredible freshman year, very successful, and I got a couple of quotes from some teammates the other day when I Googled you. And as you are leaving Florida to go to the Olympics, many of your teammates refer to you as the glue of the team, and you were a mentor and took them under your wing. And I'm sure you had some good teammates there that did that for you 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to be a role model to these girls when, especially because I came in being the only freshman. We actually had a coaching change as I came in, so I was the only athlete recruited at the time. So I came in as the only freshman, and I got to see these older girls really step in and look after me and make sure I was okay. So as I get older, and I see these young freshmen come in, I know exactly how they're feeling. I know how hard it can be. So it's not hard at all to step in and make sure they feel welcome and they feel comfortable and accepted. And then after a few weeks of trying to help girls through these tough times, you end up becoming their best friends. You live with them, you train with them, you eat with them, you're with these girls day in and day out. They just become more of like your best friends, your sisters. So it's not that hard.
It's a big extended family
It
is
is
what it becomes.
It is, and you're very protective of each other, and you look after each other through anything. So, I mean, it's tough when you have to say goodbye to seniors that, going on to bigger and better things because, you've spent so much time with them, you don't really want to say goodbye. So, and I've had to do that with so many girls that have graduated. They're the ones that got me through my first few years. It's just a circle of life, I guess.
That's it. So you were a freshman of the year in the SEC. You're all SEC, all South region. You have incredible success. Has the Olympic moment creeped into your mind yet? Has it crept in there? Or it's still not in your thoughts?
Well, every time someone asks me, obviously I'm very excited. I'm over the moon that I made. Even the moment when I found out that I was on the team, like I can't express in words. But yeah, I don't think until I touch down in London, or maybe even until I walk out onto the track, or maybe it'll be when I, receive my uniform. But I don't think it has completely, hit me that I'll be running in the Olympics in front of, millions of people watching and running for my country. I think that sort of feeling will be just overwhelming almost. It'll be really scary.
When did you have your first thought of, I want to go to the Olympics someday? How old were you?
Oh, probably the minute I started. I loved running when the minute I started was because of how much I loved it, and I just loved to win. The minute I did well, I remember saying, like, I want to do this because I do well. And, when I had a rough year my sophomore year, and, I didn't run well at all. I didn't think, I wasn't doing times that I did back in high school. And that kind of throws you off a little bit, but the minute you start running well and accomplishing things, especially these last 6 months, you realize why you do it. So I remember being very young and winning nationals or something, maybe 6th grade. 7th grade was when I won. So 6th grade when I came second, I knew that this was something that I could potentially do for a long time. Because I also used to watch other Olympians. I'd sit there on the TV, sit there and watch the TV. Or I remember they had a welcome home parade for the Olympians one year back when I was really young, and I just stood there and waited to get every single person's autograph. I didn't even know what sports they were playing, but it was just because I wanted to be in that limelight. I wanted to be at that level and represent my country. Olympics is as high as it gets, so.
So you started running at age 9. At age 10, the Olympics are in your backyard in Sydney. Didn't that play a part of starting the dream, perhaps?
Yeah, and also just seeing what a big deal it was. Sydney Olympics was amazing. It was people talked about that I think for years afterwards. It was such an amazing time for Australia even. That'll forever be in our history of one of the best Olympics ever. So yeah, definitely. Like I said, I would follow every athlete I possibly could and get their autographs and frame them and write in my diary how I wanted to be where they were. So yeah, that definitely meant a lot to me when the 2000 Olympics came around.
Well, my brother and I had a great 8 days there, and to this day we say that the Aussies are the most friendliest people in the world. And we didn't think it was just a show, hey, we have to treat the tourists nice so they'll come back. We thought it was just very, very genuine, and we really had a great time with the people.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think a lot of people say Americans are really friendly and welcoming because that's what I've noticed. But I think Australians are, in general, just very laid back and relaxed. We seem to just take things as they come. So I think it kind of works well when people meet us for the first time because they think we're very relaxed and genuine people.
Great. So now we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, so we really need to hit home here. So you're into June, okay, and you're finishing up with your Florida career and the SECs, the Nationals, all that, and you know that you have to try to hit a 9:43, which is the A time or A Olympic qualifying time, and you're in the high 950s, then you do a 950 flat, and you've got like one more chance at this on maybe June 13th. Okay, so June 11th is the cutoff day in Australia. They're maybe a little earlier than some other countries, and you don't have a 9:43 on June 11th. Here we go on June 13th. Take us through that day and that race and after the race.
Yeah, it was pretty cutthroat because, like you just said, it was 2 days late. So I knew a B qualifier wouldn't have cut it. A B qualifier before the date, I thought, maybe they would consider me because no other girl had done that time.
And the B time is what, Steve?
9:48.
9:48.
So I thought if I could do originally I thought if I could do under 9:48, they would consider me. But it being 2 days late and it being my last race, I knew I had to do under 9:43. So it was, I can't really explain how I felt with like nerves or anything because it wasn't even that. It was like, you have nothing to lose because right now you're not in the team. A lot of people are expecting you not to be in the team because, the team's starting to be selected and you haven't done the time. So I just wrote the time, the splits on my hand, what I needed to do each lap. There was a pacer for just over a kilometre. And when I was warming up, I just kept saying the splits over in my head, what I would do at every 400 metre mark. And it's strange to say, or it might sound cliche, but I knew I was going to do it. When I stood on that line, the pace came up to me and she's like, what sort of time are you going for? And I was like, I need to do under 9:43. She's like, okay, well, I'll take you around on that pace and you just got to do the rest on your own. And I was like, okay, yeah,
Good.
I'll do it.
Well, I watched that on YouTube yesterday, all 9 minutes and 41 seconds. What a joy to watch that. So I think it was one of the few times, and maybe the only time, that you really had a rabbit to pace yourself off of. And the rabbit takes you through about 4 minutes, 35 seconds, which is about half the race. The rabbit pulls off, you're in the lead, and you've got 9:41 or 9:43 in your sights.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was awesome having a pacer because any race that I'd done that year had not the time in, that wasn't the priority. It was either to win, to get points, or, to help teammates. So like I said, I knew going into that race I could do it, but I hadn't had a race set up right yet. So I knew that when that pacer pulled off, I was on pace. I was well under pace. All I had to do was just keep running for, 3-4 more laps. And so at the time I was kind of excited because she pulled off and I thought, I've got to this point, I'm well under the time, all I have to do is keep this up. And I threw in a surge and did a quick lap after she pulled out just to, cushion it a little bit more, and then just ran the next few laps at the same pace, trying to maintain what I'd already done. And I remember thinking, I had 600 to go, and I just thought, think of everything you've done this year. Think of all the pain and hurt and time and tears, everything. Like, you have 600 meters more. Well, it's like a minute and a half.
So the Bell Lap is here. You have one lap that separates you from the Olympics. And as we talked earlier this morning, it wasn't about necessarily keeping the same pace because you were pretty sure that you had it. The goal then is don't trip over the darn hurdle or fall down face first in the water pit.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, coming to that last lap, I was well under pace. I was actually, in the third, on the 9:30 pace, anywhere in between there. And so I said to myself, I was like, you have one more lap to do. You've got plenty of time. You could do this lap rather slow and still make it, so don't mess it up. And I did at every hurdle. I would have looked horrible because I jumped so high to get over it because I just didn't want to nick my feet. I didn't want to land wrong. The water jump, I literally stood up on the barrier and jumped in. I did everything as with most caution as possible. And when I was coming down that home stretch, I remember looking at the last barrier and being like, don't you trip me. So I jumped really high over it, and then I knew. I was still looking at the clock as well, and I was just smiling because I could see it still in the high 30s, and I was like, I think I've got it now.
And unlike the like the 100-meter high hurdles or something like that, those hurdles give and go forward. With the 3,000 steeplechase, which is what you're going to race in, it's a barrier. If you trip on the top of it, you go down. The barrier stays. There's absolutely no give. So you have to be really precise when you jump approximately 30 hurdles.
Yeah, the 3K steeple is such an unpredictable event. It's, you know, full of 4 barriers and a water pit every single lap for 7.5 laps. If you hit that barrier, you could pretty much say it's the end of the race. It's not going to give one bit. So when you're running and you start getting tired, your main focus then goes into just clearing it and trying to pick your feet up and making sure you're not lazy, because especially at the end of the race, if you watch, so many people just lose it in that last jump.
Okay, we've got about 1.5 minutes left, so we've got to rush through this. So you do it, you're excited, you're 2 minutes under the A time, but you're 2 days late, so you become a famous person on Twitter and Facebook and the most recognized athlete in the world. Real quick, how do you get from 2 days late to you're an Olympian?
Just a lot of stressful time waiting. I was actually lucky I didn't have to deal with there were sport lawyers involved, you know, my coach was calling over, my dad was writing letters. I actually had so many people write to the head of AA, head of Athletics Australia, and just say, like, how can you not let her in, blah, blah, blah. I just had people coming out of the woodworks giving me support, and I guess that's social media today. It really helped out, and it kind of probably got me a few more fans than I would have got if I had it on time. So I think it was a little blessing in disguise.
A lot of people power, and I love you are 3 of the biggest words and greatest words in the English language, but 3 of the greatest to you would be waking up to that text,
From my dad.
Jen, you're in.
Yes, it was. It was at 3 a.m. in the morning, and my phone was just going crazy. I woke up to it vibrating, and I saw a message from my dad, and that was the first one I read, and I just opened it, and it literally said, Jen, you're in, and I just, like, jumped up and just running around the room. I was so excited because I was on my own. My dad had gone. He was left Indianapolis 2 days earlier. So I was just waiting for my mum called literally seconds later after. It was almost like it was released that second, because after I got that one text, I had phone calls coming, like, immediately.
Great. Well, we're out of time, and I know that when you leave the Olympics, unfortunately, you're not coming back through this way, but if and when you do come back to town, we'd like to have you on again and do a follow-up about your experience. I know you're very appreciative. Your boyfriend is Zane Breakiron and Dr. Garrett and Mindy Breakiron. They're your host family, so to speak. They love you. You love them. It's been great. So we want to wish you all the luck in the world over in the Olympics. Your first race is on your birthday, August 4th.
It is August 4th.
We'll be pulling for you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so we want to thank our special Olympic guest here today, all the way from Queensland, Australia, Genevieve Lacause. And we want to thank you on Fayette County TV. And again, Jen, good luck in the Olympics, and we hope to see you on the next Time Out for Sports.